Carolina drops a game they simply could not lose, and now they've got their ugliest wart on the resume. It's time for a therapy session.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? Hey, it's Saturday, January 18th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, coming at you live just a couple minutes after Carolina falls at home to Stanford. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's definitely time for a therapy session today. The score was 72-71. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch after the game. Misery loves company, so let's get after that together. Shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Well, gang, Stanford beats Carolina 72-71 inside the Dean E. Smith Center. It's the first time ever that Stanford has beaten North Carolina. The Tar Heels were 13-0 coming in. The record for Carolina now falls to 12-7 overall. 5-2 in ACC play. The winning streak is snapped at 4 games, and consequently, we have a therapy session on our hands. Lots to talk about, obviously, to unpack from this game. We'll talk big picture stuff. We'll talk nitty-gritty of the game. We'll take some comments. I'm sure there's going to be lots of salty takes in the comments. I've already seen it in the Discord where their emotions were running high. Lots of the just emotional responses that, look, y'all, we got to just temper it. Like, I get it, but be smart. Come on, find some logicalness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean? Big picture. Let's start there. Carolina, the biggest wart on the resume so far was the number of losses. They were all quad one. Probably the worst losses to Louisville, who is looking better and better and better all the time. And outside of that, you know, all really solid, understandable losses. And so what you get to then is the point where Carolina just needs to not take more losses, particularly bad losses. And that's where things were good. Carolina had no losses in quad 4, no losses in quad 3, no losses in quad 2. And so you just got to keep stacking these wins so that when you go finish this stretch and you go play, those games at Pitt, at Duke, hosting Pitt, and then at Clemson, you maybe have built yourself a little leeway. And speaking of which, Carolina next has to go to Wake Forest, which is playing a little bit better right now as well. So with doing this, it's like you just got to win this quad 3 game at home. You have to. You simply have to. You got to find a way to make it happen. And Carolina doesn't. And there also, I've seen a lot of takes already in the immediate aftermath of the game of goodbye NCAA tournament, that's gone and done and over. That's just simply not true. So anyone you see saying that, shut that down. Now it might eventually get there, but that's not where we're at yet. Does this make Carolina's seed worse? Yes. With what Carolina had, they still could have battled for a 5 to 8 seed-ish territory. When you add a quad 3 loss like this to your resume, it puts you in a world of hurt. Again, it's not danger time yet. There's still lots of time to stack more wins. But the problem is, what did you see today that gives you hope that Carolina is going to be able to do that consistently going forward, right? It really felt like there had been great momentum picking up, and then this. You can understand every now and again if it's something on the road in conference play, but that's the other thing. Not only is this a quad 3 loss, but it's a home loss. And you cannot do that. You have to be able to get a win every time you step on the floor in the Dean E. Smith Center. And so Carolina's inability to do that is very frustrating. Let's talk about the last play there. Carolina had just gone up 71-70, kind of looking like maybe Seth Trimble was going to be the hero, making 2 clutch free throws at the direst of times. Carolina's down 1. He steps to the free throw line, 7.7 seconds left, makes the critical first one, right? Like that's the pressure one, because you at the worst, you want to tie things so you can go to overtime. But makes both of them beautifully. And Carolina's up 1, 7.7 to go. The Tar Heels decide to apply some full court pressure, including having Trimble on the ball. I like applying some pressure there. I like having a man on the ball. He wasn't tight on him, which is fine. But I wish it had been a little more token, maybe a safety deep, something like that. And Seth does a really nice job staying in front of Blake's. What I wish Seth and maybe Carolina as a team had done better there was turning, go pretty straight line. And I know Carolina doesn't have any fouls to give. That would have been nice if Stanford wasn't in the bonus there, but that just simply wasn't the case. Carolina had to defend without fouling. And so Seth did a great job staying in front of him, staying with him. And unfortunately, I think Blake's realized, I can't really get to the rim here. And I think Seth would have done a nice job walling him off without fouling, because Seth has great body control with that. So Blake stops and pops from, 7 feet out. And I actually haven't been able to go watch the replay yet, just because I was busy getting ready from everything. I know several people have called for a push off there on Blake's because Seth kind of went out of the play in real time. And so I'm really interested to see it back in real time. It felt like Seth was thinking that Blake's was going to try to get all the way to the rim. Blake's stopped, and Seth's momentum just carried him on. So I'm really curious to go watch it back and see the reality of it. And I'm sure over in the comments right now, you guys who have already watched it are dumping the answer to that question in. So I wish Carolina had made him go east and west, figured out a way to make that happen instead of just allowing it. Because man, I wanted Seth's free throws to be the difference in the game in the end. That would have been great. All of that said, though, Carolina should have never been in that position. You cannot allow a team like Stanford to hang around. I get it. And we'll get to Raynaud here in a little bit. Carolina just doesn't really have an answer for a player of his style and size because of what Carolina has on their roster. Even still, the Tar Heels should have been able to shut down Stanford and or to score on Stanford. I think is maybe the bigger issue is the offense in this game needed to be able to do more. And it wasn't like a putrid offensive performance from Carolina. It just wasn't enough. So the truth of the matter is it's another game where Carolina is unable to pull away, unable to create separation. Each time they did, Stanford was able to respond. I thought they called some wise timeouts as Carolina, every time they would make just like a little spurt, Stanford would take a timeout. And I thought those were good. And what's interesting, as you go look at the box score, which I guess I could go ahead and pull it up. Why not? Let's make that happen for those of you watching. We're going to look at that right now. As you look at the box score, this is a very statistically close game. One team would have the lead in this category or that category a little bit here or there. For example, let me just lay this out. Stanford shot 43%, Carolina 42%. Stanford shot like 4% better from three than Carolina did. Stanford shot a better percentage from the free throw line, but Carolina got there more and made 7 more. Rebounding was within 1. Stanford won rebounding by 1. Stanford had 1 more assist. Carolina had 3 fewer turnovers. So there's all these close things. Let me look. Carolina had 3 fewer turnovers. Points off turnovers, very close. Carolina didn't allow double-digit rebounds for the first time in the last 6 games. Second chance points, 10-9. Bench points is the biggest differentiator. Carolina won that 23-1. And so I say all that to say, in a game that was this statistically close, you have to do all the little things you can to win a game. And I thought Carolina gave some of those moments away. They paid for not being able to take advantage when they needed to. For example, there was about 2.5 minutes left in the game. Carolina goes up by 4. And at that point, I remember thinking, okay, it's been tough. It's been back and forth. But Carolina here in the closing moments has been able to figure it out. They went from, with about 8 minutes, Stanford was up 3. And then Carolina got it back to 5 with 4.5 to go. They got it pushed out to, just right there in that range. And we're still up 4 with 2.5 to go. And they had been holding that kind of lead for about 2 minutes. And then Raynaud hits this 3 in the corner. And I need to go back and look, and we'll probably talk about that on Monday's show. Like, was that poor defense from Carolina, or was he open with a hand in his face? Or was he kind of, was it a contested shot? With a hand in his face? I don't know. So that hurt. but the other team's going to make shots sometimes, right? That's a reality. What I thought the issue was after that was that these little things we're talking about, Carolina did not execute well. Stanford was in a 1-3-1 on their very next possession. RJ Davis, a turnover up top, just in passing up against the top of the zone. You can't do that, especially when it's RJ Davis. Like that just cannot happen in that moment. Thankfully, Stanford didn't take like a run out layup off of it. In fact, they ended up missing a layup in that next possession. But then Ian Jackson had blocked a shot, but Stanford got an offensive rebound, got a putback, and they then go up one. Seth Trimble comes down, hits a layup. That's great. And then Carolina once again doesn't take advantage of a given opportunity because Raynaud comes down and tries to take what I thought was a silly three. I was like, oh, you just hurt your team, and we're up one with a minute and a half to go. Or actually, he missed that shot with a minute to go, 65 seconds. And I was like, there's the opening where Carolina can now go do it. But then RJ takes a three. And I understand, and RJ can make those shots, but I don't think that's the shot you want or need in that moment. When he took that shot, it was 44 seconds left. Carolina's up one. I think you worked for a better shot there. Carolina had done a lot of great work using some screens to get Raynaud kind of mixed around a little bit and could get to the rim, things of that nature. I thought RJ basically, by taking that three, gave away Raynaud's poor decision earlier. And then at that point, you got 44 seconds left and anything can happen. And anything did happen, right? Jalen Blakes goes and makes those two free throws, and then Seth has his opportunity, and then the final play of the game. So again, I hate to say it, but I thought those two small thing giveaways down the stretch were RJ's turnover against the 1-3-1 zone and RJ bailing out Raynaud's poor decision three with his own poor decision three. That's what happens sometimes in these moments. So Carolina's inability to pull away, Carolina's inability to execute at the level they needed to was a big bugaboo there down the stretch. You guys agree with that? You see that? Did you feel that? Yes, absolutely. So some other places we need to get to in our conversation, in our therapy session here is we've been wondering, will Ian Jackson eventually fall off? Bound to happen at some point. And what happens to Carolina as a team when he does? I also want to talk about Maxime Raynaud and how Carolina did or didn't defend him well. That and much more coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Prize Picks, which is the place to get real money sports action. They've got over 10 million members and billions in winnings. With that, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs or regular season, we got playoff football going right now as you and I are talking post-game. Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of that football action. So now it is playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on that than with Prize Picks. All you got to do is you're given a player and a stat line, and you just pick more or less on that. And if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash just by making a few simple picks. There's all sorts of great lines for what's going on in the NFL right now. There's great stuff ahead of the football national championship game on Monday. Go check it all out. It's an easy way to play. And with Prize Picks Flex Play, man, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So you ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. So don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, where I want to go next is looking at the Ian Jackson of it all, because look, this dude has been so wildly impressive in what he's been doing for Carolina, but he is a freshman, and eventually he was not going to be able to contribute at the same level game after game after game. Like, it was inevitable that eventually he was going to have an off game, and Carolina was going to have to figure out what to do when that happened. Could they weather the storm when Ian was eventually off? And the answer, unfortunately, was no. It is Ian Jackson's first career game not making a three-point shot. Did you realize that? He had made a three in every game Carolina had played to this point, 0 of 5 today. He was 1 of 8 from the field, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, so great there. Had a block, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, just 1 turnover. So he did some other nice things. And I think that's where, before we get to the of it, let's talk about what Ian did do. He found some other ways to contribute to what Carolina was doing. I appreciated that he never forced it, like a lot of guys in those moments would be like, screw it, I'm going to keep chucking too much, right? Like there's a level at which he's got to keep shooting because given his prowess offensively, eventually the shots are going to fall, right? But I appreciated that he didn't just say, all right, I'm going to take it on my shoulder and take shots outside of the rhythm of the flow of the offense. So I thought that even in a bad game for Ian shooting wise, I don't think it was a bad all around game because he contributed in other ways. And I thought he showed great wisdom and maturity there. That said, it's unfortunately because Carolina was not able to weather that storm. They weren't able to do it. Not enough from enough other guys from scoring or defense or things like that. So there's that side of it from Ian. Carolina just, again, not enough to weather that. Let's talk about Maxime Raynaud, because that was one of the big questions coming in. Could Carolina maintain him or contain him at some level the way they did Andrej Stojakovic earlier this week, holding the ACC's second leading score to just 6 points? The answer today was no. Raynaud, 25 points, 13 rebounds in the game. Here's what I'll say about it, though. He was dominant in the first half and had 7 points in the first 8 or so minutes of the second half. It was like, all right, not today. It's just, you're going to have to force somebody else to beat you, right? But then Carolina actually was able to hold him in check from then on until that 3-point shot late. Basically went from like 11 something minutes left in the game till that 3-point shot scoreless. It was like an 8 to 9 minute scoreless stretch. That's almost a quarter of the game, right? You can absolutely live with that. And yes, he scored 25 points, but hear me say this. It took him 24 shots to get there, including shooting just 3 of 12 from 3. So the fact that, again, let's just not think about the number of points he scored, but think about the fact that half the shots he took were threes. And yes, he's a solid 3-point shooter, but I can live with him taking half of his shots from 3 because he only made 3 of them. So from that regard, he was wildly inefficient. And I think Carolina can kind of live with that. The bigger problem was not Raynaud. The bigger problem was Carolina's inability to control Jalen Blake's. Here's what I mean. Yes, Raynaud scored 25 points, but again, it took him 24 shots to get there. Jalen Blake's, on the other hand, scored 20 points, if you didn't realize that, and it only took him 13 shots to get there. He was 7 of 13 from the field, while Raynaud was 8 of 24 from the field. Blake's also contributed 7 assists and just a turnover. So not only did he score 20, he was responsible for a ton other points and was taking care of the ball. So to me, I truly feel like Jalen Blake's was the bigger issue for the Tar Heels in this game, including, unfortunately, that game winner. And again, sure, we wish that shot had rimmed out or hit back iron or off the glass weirdly or whatever it is. But if we're being honest, Carolina didn't do the little things they needed, again, in a close statistical game to have the margin they needed to render that shot pointless. So, yes, props to Maxime Raynaud. But for the box score watchers, Jalen Blake's equally, if not more, of an issue for the Tar Heels. Let's talk about a couple positive things here. Van Allen Lubin stepped up in a big way in this game. Season high, 13 points. That's his Tar Heel high. It was 5 of 8 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, had 5 rebounds, and I just thought had some really nice moments. Was able to be involved in some pick and roll stuff. Played some nice defense here and there against Raynaud, which was tough to do on this day. And so I thought, the combination of that with Jay Wash, who didn't have as many points, not quite as many rebounds, but did have 8 points, 4 of 9 shooting, 4 boards. So you combine those guys, they got 21 points and 9 rebounds. Maybe you'd like a little more on the glass, but, I can live with that. Interestingly, Jalen Withers only played 6 minutes. No sign of any of the rest of the front court guys. So really, this was a Jalen Washington, Van Allen Lubin game from that regard, and just not enough. But props to Van Allen Lubin. Some other positives. I thought Elliot Cadeau had a really, really nice game here. Yes, he had those 2 first half fouls. Second one came with like 7:20 to go in the first half, so had to sit for a while. But had 12 points on 3 of 4 shooting, was aggressive, got to had 8 free throw attempts. To kind of pace Carolina in that number, made 6 of them, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and the big critical number, a goose egg in the turnover column and a steal. Really, really positive game for Elliot Cadeau. It was great. We'll take that, right? 12 points, 5 assists, no turnovers, 6 rebounds, 6 of 8 at the free throw line. Yeah. Another positive I want to shout out is Seth Trimble, who is, again, still working back. I had said we'll say Seth is fully back when we see him make a 3, which he did in this game finally. 9 points, 3 of 7 shooting. Critically, those 2 free throws at the end, those were his only 2 attempts of the game. So that's big time to step up in that moment. 4 rebounds for him and a steal and an assist and 1 turnover. What I thought Stanford did a good job of doing, though, was it felt like they were the pace setters of this game. So part of what made Seth so destructive to Cal on Wednesday night was, man, him just getting out in transition and going. Carolina did have 11 fast break points in this game, but I didn't think Trimble's athleticism, because of what Stanford was doing, was allowed to be as detrimental to detrimental to Stanford in this game, as we saw on Wednesday night. And that's unfortunate, right? Would love Seth to be able to have those moments, get out and let his athleticism be on display in transition and making stuff happen. So there is that. And in talking about Elliott's 0 turnovers, by the way, Carolina, just 5 turnovers for the entire game. That's a number you can live with. 2 in the first half, 3 in the second half. I can probably even tell you in real time here. Let me get to one of my charts. Turnovers. They had 5 against Hawaii. This ties a season low and is a season low against a high major opponent. In fact, against every high major opponent coming into this game, I'm looking in real time as we talk, Carolina had double-digit turnovers against every other high major opponent and just 5 today. So kudos. That, again, there are good things from this game, just not enough of them, not enough small things to make the big difference. We talked about those small differences that add up when you're not doing them well. Let's talk about one other, and then we'll take our next break. Blob plays, baseline out of bounds. Stanford had Carolina's number over and over and over again. Multiple times they ran that set where they ran the second man through, scored off of that. They had another one late in the game. That was a bit of a different look, but got another bucket off of that as well. Those things add up. If you stop just one of those plays, you win this basketball game, right? And look, hear me. Those are the what ifs of a 1-point game, of a 1-point loss. But they add up. They add up. You stop one of those, you win by 1. You stop 2 of those, you win by more. RJ doesn't take that 3. RJ doesn't make that turnover, right? You start adding all those little penny mistakes up, and it's $1 or $2 or $5, right? And so, again, if the margins are going to be slim, then you got to be shrewd and you got to take care of business. Again, Carolina has been playing with fire all season long in this regard, right? It wasn't an issue today of being down by a lot in the first half. The biggest deficit they faced in the first half, maybe the entire game, which I can tell you in real time, was 4. Stanford, largest lead, 5. They led 57-52. That's right, at one point in the second half. So that's the biggest deficit they faced in the game. But Carolina should have been able to pull away, and unfortunately, they just could not. All right, gang. So that means we need to take one more break. We're going to look at, oh, man, there are a crud ton of comments over there, so we're going to get to those here coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Man, you guys, I lost my FanDuel read. Well, anyway, look, the playoffs are going on right now, and FanDuel is where you need to go to get all your playoff action. Here's the read for you. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has got you covered. Similar to what we talked about earlier, man. All sorts of great lines for the NFL playoffs. All sorts of great prop bets and other things coming up for the National Championship Monday. Go check all of that out. Do it at FanDuel.com and get started again with $300 in bonus bets. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okie dokie, here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now, I can only imagine how frustrated this comment section is going to be. Let's make some guesses. Over under 13 fire Hubert Davises. Over under 5 the NCAA tournament's cooked comments, right? Like that's just the emotion of a loss, and I get it. I hear it. So let's dive right on in. Yeah, some of you guys are right here with me. Dr. T-Man99, so I'm assuming that's how to say that, says poor late game execution on both ends in the last 4 minutes. Tar Heels didn't stop one Stanford out of bounds set play in the whole game. Yeah, I mean, it was tough, and that's what Carolina struggled with, man. All of that stuff back and forth was a reality of this loss. Yeah, I wonder about this. SOTX Elite says, Southeast Elite says, coaching adjustments were not made. Inbound points by Stanford with the same play. There's that being brought up again. That's 2 times. But here's the one I wanted to get to. Not utilizing all our fouls, either of our bigs. Washington, Lubin, Claude, and Brown. And that's an interesting point is, go at Maxime Raynaud. Stanford is not a deep team. They don't have much to come in for him. How much did he play in this game? 37 minutes and just had 2 fouls. Go at him, rough him up a little bit. He's a slender guy. Why not? Utilize those fouls. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, there's opportunities there with the front court to have used some of those fouls. But again, the guys that did play, props to Washington and Lubin for how they were able to do that. And in particular, Lubin, who really, really stepped up in this game. Unfortunately. Man. Let's see if we got any other questions that we want to get to here or any other. Yeah, here's an interesting point from Brian Bean. And I'm assuming Brian is talking about Ian Jackson here. When a scorer is struggling, you just work harder to get them easier looks. We just decided to go back to what didn't work earlier in the season. And look, there is something to that of keep working to get Ian more involved. The fact that I'm on Stanford's stats. How many? Ian only had 8 shot attempts. That was tied with Van Allen Lubin. That was 1 fewer than Jalen Washington. And that was, RJ was 6 of 15 in the game. Even though Ian was struggling, yeah, let's run some very specific plays to get him going down to the basket, because he either gets fouled or he goes to the free throw line where he's 4 of 4 today. I can get behind that point, honestly. And so there it is, unfortunately. Not enough from Ian Jackson. So there's that. I'm seeing responses to things I've said as we go. I had said, I know RJ Davis can make that shot, talking about that 3 he took that I said was a bad shot. And somebody else said, Isaac, you're wrong. He can't make that shot. All right, fine. I get that. Yeah, just a lot of takes on how bad things were. Okay, there's nothing else we really need to get to in there right now that I'm seeing. And so we're just going to go ahead and call it a show because it's therapy. So let's then forecast ahead. Carolina Tuesday night goes to Wake Forest. That game was a game that if you went into that with a 5-game losing streak and things were continuing to progress, it's a tough game against Hunter Shallis and the Demon Deacons, but you could understand if it was a close game, maybe even a close loss. But now you've put yourself in a position where it's all the more must win than ever. It's just a fact of the matter that Carolina has put their backs even more firmly against the wall than they were. Hearing the national conversation, people were starting to talk about Carolina turning the corner. Is Carolina finding something? Have they done it? Had Seth's free throws been the game winners and Carolina stops Blake's or Blake's misses that last shot? All the talking points next week would have been, oh man, Carolina had another close game, but they won it, so they just keep trucking. That would have been it. Now we knew it. It was just a matter of time before Carolina fell again. And here it is. Here it was. So unfortunate, but here's what you got to do now. As difficult as it is, and as frustrating as this loss is, you go back to work, you turn your attention to what you can learn from this game, and you get better. because Carolina still has a shot at making the NCAA tournament. That is not fully gone. Yes, again, this quad 3 loss is ugly. And again, that was the feather in your cap, is we had a lot of losses, but we didn't have a 2, 3, or 4 loss. Now you do. But you keep working, you keep grinding. And fans, let me just say, I know it's frustrating, but stick with it. Keep showing up and turning up and enjoying it, even in the frustration. And it is what it is. And, some potential good news on Saturday with some crystal balls in for Caleb Wilson. I was told by a source earlier in the day or later on Friday that behind the scenes, Wilson might have actually committed like a week or so ago, and just waiting on Thursday for the actual public commitment. So hopeful good news on the horizon there, but still there's a season ahead of us and we got to see what happens. All right, guys, if you have not subscribed to the show on YouTube and audio, make sure you do so, because you're wanting to hang out and get in on this Locked On Tar Heels action all the time. We're working to get to 10,000 subscribers in the first 3 years of the show, and we're less than 400 away from that. Would you help us get there by the end of February, man? That is coming in a hurry. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family, we'd love to have you in there. It's free to join. The link's in the show notes. There's also the great Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, where I share stuff with them, like that Caleb Wilson stuff I just shared. I had previously shared that with them before I made it public anywhere else. You could have been in on that. Links in the show notes. Great to join. You get other perks as well. All right, guys. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel, even when we have to have a therapy session. We'll be back on Monday to unpack more of this game and everything else going on. But until then, peace.